48 hours.
That's the window Iran just gave to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Qatar to make a decision that will reshape the geopolitical architecture of the Middle East for generations to come. This was not a diplomatic request. This was not an invitation to negotiate. This was an ultimatum delivered simultaneously through covert intelligence channels to every Gulf monarchy at the exact same moment. The message was identical in every capital.
Simple. Binary.
Devastating regardless of which path they choose. Terminate all American military operations from your territory immediately. Close the bases. Revoke overflight authorizations. Cut off logistical support networks. End the cooperation that enables American strikes against Iranian targets. Or accept that your petroleum infrastructure, the singular foundation upon which your entire national existence is constructed, the system that feeds your population and powers your cities and funds your governments, becomes a legitimate military target that Iranian forces will systematically eliminate until nothing functional remains. 48 hours to choose between economic annihilation and strategic abandonment. There is no compromise position. There is no middle path. The deadline cannot be extended. Iran communicated that clearly. We are not requesting your cooperation. We are notifying you of what happens based on your choice. Choose America and your oil facilities burn. Choose your oil facilities and America departs. Either outcome ends the gulf that existed before this ultimatum, the region where monarchies carefully balanced relationships with competing powers, where strategic ambiguity provided protection, where petroleum wealth purchased security guarantees. That gulf is finished and it will not return. On March 8 of this year, Iranian representatives delivered identical communications to Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, the President of the UAE, Kuwait's ruling Emir, and Qatar's senior leadership. The messages did not travel through official diplomatic channels. They traveled through the shadow networks that Gulf intelligence services maintain with Tehran specifically for communications too sensitive for formal diplomacy. These are the channels reserved for messages that cannot appear in any official record. The content was direct and unambiguous. Your territory is enabling attacks that kill Iranian citizens. American aircraft launch from runways on your soil. American unmanned systems operate from your airfields. American missiles traverse your sovereign airspace. American supply chains flow through your port facilities. Every single one of those operations transforms you from a neutral party into an active combatant. Combatants suffer consequences in wartime. You have 48 hours to terminate American military utilization of your territory. When that window closes, if American operations continue from your soil, we will commence systematic destruction of your petroleum production infrastructure. Not your military installations, your oil fields, your refineries, your export terminals, your pipeline networks, your storage facilities. Every component required to extract, process, and ship the resource your economy depends upon. We will destroy it methodically. We will destroy it completely. We will destroy it in ways that cannot be repaired for years. And there is absolutely nothing you can do to prevent it. The Gulf monarchies received this communication and immediately understood three fundamental realities. First, Iran is not making empty threats. The previous 2 weeks demonstrated conclusively that Iranian forces can strike any target in the Gulf region with precision. Saudi oil facilities have already been hit. Kuwaiti refineries have already been damaged. The capability is not theoretical. It has been proven in combat. Second, American defensive systems cannot protect Gulf petroleum infrastructure. The target density is too high. The geographic spread is too wide. The vulnerability is too inherent to the nature of oil facilities. Consider that a single Saudi oil field, Ghawar, contains over 800 individual wellheads distributed across 280 kilometers of desert. You cannot position a Patriot missile battery at every wellhead. You cannot intercept every incoming missile when 50 launch simultaneously at 50 separate targets spread across 100 kilometers. The mathematics of defense do not produce a favorable answer. Third, the 48-hour deadline is genuine. Iran is not initiating a negotiation. Iran is concluding one. The decision point has arrived. Delay itself constitutes a decision that Iran will interpret as choosing America. Let me explain what each option actually means in practice. Because this is not a diplomatic puzzle where skilled negotiators discover creative solutions. This is a binary trap where both available doors open onto catastrophe. Option 1 means choosing America. It means telling Iran that Gulf states refuse to submit to ultimatums. That alliance commitments with the United States carry weight. That sovereignty includes the right to host whatever foreign military forces you choose. American bases remain operational. American operations continue without restriction. Iran executes its threat. Iranian missiles begin striking Saudi oil fields. Aramco facilities that produce 10 million barrels daily start going offline. Not in a single massive attack. Systematically. 1 field per day. 1 refinery per week. A sustained campaign designed to reduce Saudi oil production from 10 million barrels per day to 5 million, then to 2 million, then to effectively zero over a 3-month period. What does this mean for Saudi Arabia specifically? Petroleum revenue constitutes 87% of Saudi government income. When oil production falls 50%, government revenue falls 50%. Saudi Arabia cannot pay public sector salaries, cannot subsidize food and fuel for its citizens, cannot fund the social welfare programs that prevent 60% youth unemployment from becoming political revolution. The country that purchased stability with oil wealth loses the oil wealth. Stability disappears with it. This is not speculation. This is basic arithmetic. Saudi leadership understands these numbers better than anyone. The UAE confronts identical calculations with different numbers leading to the same outcome. Oil and gas revenue represents 30% of GDP directly. But more importantly, petroleum wealth created the foundation for everything else the Emirates built. The real estate market that attracted billions in foreign investment collapses when the country becomes an active war zone. The tourism sector that Dubai constructed over decades vanishes when international airlines refuse to fly passengers into a city under missile attack. The financial services industry that positioned Dubai as a regional hub relocates to Singapore when explosions start occurring. The UAE does not merely lose oil revenue, it loses everything that oil revenue made possible. Kuwait faces the same calculation. Qatar faces the same calculation. Different specific numbers.
Same ultimate outcome.
Destroyed oil infrastructure means collapsed economic infrastructure. Economic collapse in a rentier state means political collapse follows within months. These monarchies exist because oil wealth allows them to provide for populations that have no other significant economic base. Remove the oil wealth and the social contract that sustains the monarchy dissolves. Option 2 means choosing the oil. It means informing America that Gulf states can no longer serve as hosts for United States military forces.
Bases close.
Overflight permissions revoked. American personnel given 30 days to depart. Iran ceases targeting oil infrastructure. Petroleum continues flowing. The economy survives. And America leaves permanently. Because once you expel American forces during an active conflict, you do not get them back when the conflict ends. The alliance is not paused. The alliance is terminated. What does that mean strategically? It means the Gulf region loses its external security guarantor. Iran becomes the dominant regional power by default. Not through military conquest. Through the simple reality that Gulf states cannot defend themselves against Iran and the country that could defend them has departed. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, all of them become Iranian client states. Iranian influence expands into every Gulf capital. Iranian preferences become Gulf foreign policy. The monarchies that spent 70 years carefully balancing against Iranian power just delivered Iran everything it sought without Iran needing to fire a single missile at them. And America, what happens to America? America loses the Middle East. Not loses a war. Loses the entire region. 60 years of alliance infrastructure. Strategic positioning. Military access agreements. Basing rights. All of it evaporates because Gulf states concluded that American protection costs more than it provides. The American military presence that has defined regional security architecture since 1945 ends not because American forces were defeated in battle, but because American allies determined that the alliance had become a liability rather than an asset. Here is what makes this ultimatum strategically brilliant from Iran's perspective. The 48-hour deadline does not provide Gulf states sufficient time to negotiate. Does not provide America sufficient time to deploy additional defensive capabilities. Does not provide anyone sufficient time to locate a diplomatic exit. 48 hours is precisely enough time to make the required decision. Not enough time to escape making it. Iran designed this timeline specifically to prevent the one thing Gulf states have mastered over decades. Delay and strategic hedging. Gulf monarchies survived for generations by refusing to commit fully to either side of regional rivalries. They maintained relationships with America and Iran simultaneously. They purchased weapons from Western powers while conducting diplomatic dialogue with Tehran. They hosted American military bases while sending delegations to meet Iranian leaders. This strategy functioned because both major powers tolerated the ambiguity. Iran has stopped tolerating it. The ultimatum forces a choice that cannot be postponed, cannot be hedged, cannot be managed through the usual diplomatic ambiguity that Gulf foreign ministries excel at producing. The 48-hour window creates simultaneous pressure on every recipient. Saudi Arabia cannot wait to observe what the UAE decides because every country faces the same deadline. The UAE cannot coordinate strategy with Kuwait because there is no time for multilateral consultations. Each country must make its own calculation in isolation, under severe time pressure, with incomplete information about what others will do. This is not diplomacy. This is coercion engineered for maximum effectiveness. The deadline also prevents American intervention from altering the fundamental equation. 48 hours is insufficient time for the United States to deploy new defensive systems to the region, negotiate enhanced security guarantees that Gulf states would find credible, or restructure regional military posture in ways that change the vulnerability calculus. American officials can offer promises. They cannot deliver capabilities that transform the fundamental defensibility of Gulf oil infrastructure in 48 hours. Iran ensured that would be impossible. Let me explain why American defenses cannot protect Gulf petroleum infrastructure, regardless of American commitment or willingness to do so. This is not a question of political will. This is physics, geometry, target density. Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure presents a defensive nightmare. Ghawar field is the largest conventional oil field on the planet. 280 kilometers of territory. Over 800 individual wellheads. Processing facilities at Abqaiq represent perhaps the most critical petroleum installation on Earth, processing 7 million barrels daily. Ras Tanura export terminal loads 6 million barrels daily onto tankers bound for global markets.
Sheba Field, Safaniya Field, Manifa Field.
Each covering hundreds of square kilometers with dozens of critical nodes where a single strike creates cascading failures. You cannot defend that target set with missile interceptors. A Patriot battery provides coverage over a radius of approximately 20 kilometers. Providing overlapping coverage over just Ghawar field alone would require 15 to 20 Patriot batteries operating simultaneously. Saudi Arabia possesses 8 batteries total. The United States has approximately 10 batteries deployed across the entire Gulf region. The arithmetic does not produce a solution. Even if sufficient batteries existed, each battery carries approximately 60 interceptors. If Iran launches 500 missiles simultaneously at 500 different targets distributed across Saudi petroleum infrastructure, the interceptors deplete before covering half the target set. The remainder of the missiles reach their targets without interception attempts. Iran has demonstrated operational capability to launch over 1,000 missiles and drones in a single day against targets spread across 6 different countries. The capacity is proven, not theoretical. Saudi petroleum infrastructure is more geographically concentrated than the targets Iran struck in recent operations and more vulnerable because oil facilities are not constructed to survive military attack. An oil processing plant is not a hardened military bunker. It is a complex system of pipes, tanks, pumps, and control systems designed for industrial efficiency. No consideration was given to combat survivability during design and construction. One missile impacting the correct junction point can take an entire major facility offline for months of repair work. The UAE faces identical problems on smaller geographic scale. Abu Dhabi's petroleum facilities. Dubai's critical port infrastructure. The natural gas processing plants that keep electrical grids functioning. All soft targets that cannot be defended comprehensively against saturation attacks employing hundreds of simultaneous missiles. Behind closed doors in Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait City and Doha, identical conversations are occurring right now. Conversations that cannot be recorded,
cannot be leaked,
will never be publicly acknowledged. Conversations where Gulf monarchs are asking their military commanders and intelligence directors one simple question. Can we survive if we choose America? The answer returning from professional military and intelligence assessments is no. Not perhaps with additional support. Not if circumstances evolve favorably. No. We cannot defend our petroleum infrastructure against sustained Iranian missile campaigns. American defensive systems are already depleted from recent operations. American interceptor inventories are running low. American early warning capabilities have been degraded. Even at full capacity, the defensive systems available in theater cannot protect the number of targets Iran can threaten simultaneously. The mathematics produce no solution. The second question follows inevitably. Can we survive if we choose Iran and lose America? The answer differs but offers no comfort. Economically, yes. Oil continues flowing. Revenue continues arriving. Strategically, no. We become Iranian dependencies. Our foreign policy aligns with Tehran's preferences. Our security depends on Iranian goodwill rather than our own capabilities or alliance commitments. We survive as nations. We cease to be sovereign in any meaningful sense. The third question is the one nobody wants to articulate, but everyone is calculating. What happens if we choose America and America loses the broader conflict? Then we experience the worst possible combination of outcomes. Our petroleum infrastructure is destroyed. Our economy collapses. And America, having lost the war, withdraws from the region anyway. We made the loyal choice and received nothing for our loyalty except national ruin, while our adversary emerges victorious. That question keeps every Gulf monarch awake tonight because the past 2 weeks revealed something no one wanted to see. America might not win this conflict. American defensive systems have been degraded significantly. American forces have sustained casualties. American carrier battlegroups have repositioned farther from Iranian strike range. These are not the actions of a military dominating a conflict. These are the actions of a military managing unexpected difficulties. If America is not dominating 2 weeks into this conflict, what does the situation look like 2 months from now?
6 months from now?
Traditional diplomatic resolution requires 3 things that Iran's ultimatum eliminated entirely. Time for back-channel negotiations. Intermediaries with credibility to both parties. Space for face-saving compromises that allow both sides to claim partial victory. The 48-hour deadline permits none of these diplomatic tools to function. There is no time for the extended back-channel discussions that usually defuse these situations. There are no credible intermediaries who could broker middle-ground solutions acceptable to both Iran and America. There is no face-saving compromise available because Iran's demand permits no gradations. American forces leave or petroleum infrastructure burns. The demand is binary by design. Gulf states cannot publicly announce compliance with Iranian ultimatums. That would constitute political humiliation that undermines the legitimacy monarchies require to govern. But they also cannot publicly announce defiance of Iranian ultimatums because that would effectively declare that war is coming, triggering capital flight, population panic, and economic collapse before the first missile even launches. So what actually transpires when the 48 hours expire? Gulf states most likely provide private assurances to Iran that American offensive operations from their territory will be quietly restricted while publicly maintaining that they make sovereign decisions independent of external pressure. Iran most likely accepts this private compliance while publicly claiming victory, that Gulf states yielded to Iranian pressure and American regional influence has been curtailed. America most likely accepts the new operational restrictions while publicly insisting that Gulf partnerships remain strong and strategic cooperation continues. Everyone pretends the humiliation never occurred. But the substantive outcome remains unchanged regardless of public messaging. American military capability in the Gulf region just suffered severe restriction. Not through battlefield defeat. Through coercive diplomacy that exploited the fundamental vulnerability Gulf states cannot solve. Their national wealth derives entirely from infrastructure they cannot defend against a determined adversary.
48 hours. 2 days.
The time required to process a routine bureaucratic decision in most government systems. Not sufficient time to restructure 70 years of alliance relationships. Not sufficient time to deploy new defensive capabilities that change the strategic equation. Not sufficient time to locate diplomatic exits that do not exist. Gulf monarchies are performing calculations at this moment that will determine whether America remains a Middle Eastern power or becomes a historical footnote in regional affairs. The ultimatum demonstrates elegant cruelty in its construction. Choose the ally that cannot protect you, or choose the adversary that can destroy you. Both choices constitute defeats. One delivers immediate economic collapse. The other delivers gradual strategic irrelevance and eventual absorption into an Iranian sphere of influence. There is no third option available. There is no additional time remaining. And the 48 hours are already counting down toward zero.